Dear friends, today I'm going to talk to you about Jesuit education and human excellence. And this human excellence is manifested in what we call the four C's. That is, men and women of conscience, competence, compassion, and commitment. In fact, in 1973, exactly 50 years ago, Father Arupe, the then general, wrote that today our prime educational objective must be to form men and women for others. Men and women who live not for themselves, but for God and His Christ. This was the famous address to the alumni at Valencia in 1973 by Pedro Arupe. Men and women for others and with others is considered a contemporary expression of the humanism that Jesuit education has embraced from the beginnings. So I will try to bring this from the beginning of Jesuit education. In fact, from the beginning of Jesuit education, it was aimed to human excellence. The vision of the Jesuit education affirms the radical goodness of the world charged with the grandeur of God, as Gerard Manley Hopkins, the famous Jesuit poet, says. And it regards every element of creation as worthy of study and contemplation, capable of endless exploration. Education in a Jesuit school tries to create a sense of wonder and mystery in learning about God's creation. The characteristics of Jesuit education identify the meaning of human life, and with the total formation of each student as an individual personally loved by God. And therefore, for all the students, to all, whatever their beliefs, Christ is proposed as the model of human life. Everyone can draw inspiration and learn about commitment from the life and teachings of Jesus. And what are the teachings of Jesus? It is the love and forgiveness of God. It is also the solidarity with those who suffer, especially the marginalized. Today, in the context of ours, it can be of the refugees, the migrants, the poor. And also, Jesuit education teaches from Jesus, that is, a service to the needy. In fact, our education is a preparation for a matured, holistic life. The success of Jesuit education is measured not in terms of academic performance of students or professional competence of teachers, though they are a must, but that's not enough. It is rather in terms of this quality of life. Now, from the beginning of Jesuit education, the curriculum is centered on the person rather than on the material to be covered. Each student is allowed to develop and to accomplish objectives at a pace suited to individual ability and the characteristics of his or her personality. If you look at today what we call the multiple intelligence, etc., we are talking about this. Each individual is specially gifted by God. Therefore, we must understand and concentrate and focus on the students rather than the subject and the material aid that we use. Therefore, our education gives a spiritual vision of the world in the face of materialism. This is very important. Second, it's also a concern for others in the face of egoism. Third, it also gives simplicity in the face of consumerism. And it's also the cause of the poor in the face of social injustice. Jesuit education cannot ignore these four elements. That is, once again, a spiritual vision of the world in the face of materialism, a concern for others in the face of egoism, simplicity in the face of consumerism, and the cause of the poor in the face of social injustice. Remember, these are applicable to students, teachers, administrational leaders in the schools, and also the parents. In Jesuit education, the criterion of excellence is applied in all areas of school life. We cannot compartmentalize one area. We are trying to make, as Coleman Back, our former general, says, conscience, competence, compassion, and commitment in our students. And therefore, the school policies are such that they create an ambience or climate which will promote excellence. The pursuit of academic excellence is appropriate in a Jesuit school, but only within the larger context of human excellence. A traditional aim of Jesuit education has been to train leaders. But today, our aim is not only to train leaders, but the leaders who are at the service of humanity. Jesuit education tries to instill a joy in learning and a desire to learn that will remain beyond the days in school. Education, we believe, is a lifelong process, as the characteristics of Jesuit education clearly identifies. And therefore, there are certain qualities our Jesuit schools must maintain. Number one is the Jesuit school is a community of faith and express this faith through appropriate religious or spiritual celebrations. We have the 10 identifiers of Jesuit school, and the first identifier is this: a Jesuit school is a Catholic school which also encourages everyone to have faith and express that faith and the spiritual growth in their lives. We also have the UAP. UAP 1 talks about showing the way to God. So spiritual aspect is a must in a Jesuit school. And Jesuit education is an instrument to help students know God better and respond to Him. Teaching in a Jesuit school is therefore is not simply a profession, it's a ministry, it's a help, it's a service. Every Jesuit school does that it can to make Jesuit education available to everyone. One of the 10 identifiers of the school is that accessibility, including the poor and the disadvantaged. Jesuit schools form a network. We call it global network of Jesuit schools, joined by a common vision with a common goal. And that is expressed through Educate Magis. Teachers and administrators in Jesuit schools share ideas and experiences in order to discover the principles and methods that will provide the most effective implementation of this common vision. And that's why Educate Magis is so important for a Jesuit school. Every Jesuit school teacher is expected to be a member of Jesuit education, which is our global platform, global network of schools. And in and through Educate Magis, we are all interrelated and connected. The policies and programs of a Jesuit school give concrete witness to the faith that does justice. We cannot separate our faith, as Jesuit school expresses, from the justice-oriented life. Our faith must stand for justice. In fact, they give a counter witness to the value of the consumer society. School policy and school life encourage mutual respect. They promote the human dignity and human right of each person, adult and young, in the educational community. And therefore, another aspect is so important for us, that is intellectual formation. Intellectual formation includes mastery of basic humanistic and scientific disciplines through careful and sustained study that is based on competent and well motivated teaching. This intellectual formation includes a growing ability to reason reflectively, logically, and critically. In fact, critical thinking is a big element in the Jesuit educational process. Jesuit education also includes a careful and critical study of technology together with physical and moral sciences. In our education, particular care is given to the development of the imaginative, the affective, and the creative dimensions of each student in all cases of study. Therefore, one thing must be remembered, that Jesuit education develops traditional skills in speaking and writing, and also with modern means of communication. Jesuit education includes a well-developed program of sports and physical education. We call each one's development of his or her given talents, we call it cura personalis, the care of each individual. Each individual is different. We cannot have one size fit for all. Everyone is different, and therefore understanding each one accordingly and developing their talents and skills is part and parcel of Jesuit education. All of these distinct aspects of educational process have one common purpose, that is the formation of a balanced person with a personally developed philosophy of life that includes an ongoing habits of reflection. Persons must be able to continue to reflect, and therefore comes a very important aspect called cura personalis. I just mentioned about cura personalis. Cura personalis means care of the individual. In fact, it remains a basic characteristics of Jesuit education. From the beginning, last 500 years, we have been maintaining this care of individuals. Today, we call it in the modern sense multiple intelligence and so on. But it is already done all through the years of education given by the Jesuits. Thus, the curriculum is centered on a person rather than on the material to be covered. Today we all talk about person-centered education, etc. Even in the modern educational systems, any systems in the world will say we need to focus on students, focus on individuals, etc. This has been the big element of Jesuit education from the beginning. Now, when we talk about Jesuit education, another important aspect is there is a religious formation. We believe that human beings are interrelated, interconnected. They are creation of God, and therefore it encourages and assists each student to respond to his or her own personal call from God, a vocation that God gives to each one of them for the service in the personal life as well as the professional life, whether in a married life or religious life or priestly life or a single life. We all are called by God. God gives that vocation. And therefore, whichever religion you belong, whichever ethnicity you are, which region you belong to, doesn't matter. We can have developing a greater reverence and love for God. Jesuit education is also concerned with the ways in which students will make use of their formation within the human community, in the service of others, for the praise, reverence, and service of God, as Ignatius says in the principle and foundation of the spiritual exercises. In a Jesuit school, therefore, the atmosphere is one in which all can live and work together in understanding and love, with respect for all men and women of God. Now, when it comes to the Jesuit school, the quality of a relationship between the guide of the spiritual exercises and the person making them is the model for the relationship between a teacher and a student. For example, the spiritual exercise of St. Ignatius, Ignatius says, a guide is there to help you to see whether the pendulum is moving on the right direction or not. A teacher is a guide. He is there in the place of the spiritual guide, in the sense making, encouraging, igniting, and also guiding the students' personal choices. And therefore, teachers are more than an academic guides. Please pay attention to this. Teachers are more than academic guides in Jesuit schools. They are involved in the lives of the students, taking a personal interest in the intellectual, affective, moral, and spiritual development of every student, helping each one to develop a sense of self-worth and to become a responsible individual within the community. I think many of our teachers are yet to understand this very important uh, aspect of Jesuit education. Teachers are real role models. They should be part and parcel of children's life so that they will be nurtured and nourished by the teachers, encouraged by the teachers. Therefore, the teachers try to live in a way that offers an example to the students. And they are willing to share their own personal life experiences with the students. Cura personalis remain a basic characteristics of Jesuit education and as a characteristics of Jesuit educators. Teachers try to become more conscious of the faith that does justice, so that they can provide students with the intellectual, moral, and spiritual formation that will enable them to make a commitment to service, that will make them agents of change. We are not simply teaching children to become intellectual monsters. They must be agents of change in the society. And therefore, we must encourage personal and professional development of teachers in our schools by providing staff development programs in every school, and as far as possible, providing the necessary time and financial assistance for more extended training and formation. In fact, globally, Educate Magis is entrusted with global courses. Currently, we are running several courses on global citizenship, the 4 key practices, interculturality, global citizenship, as I said. Then we have coming up a new course called Contemporary Jesuit Education, Ignatian Leadership Programs, etc. All are aimed at enabling our teachers to be truly Ignatian teachers. An educator in the Jesuit tradition is encouraged to exercise his great freedom and imagination in the choice of teaching techniques, pedagogical methods, etc. We are not simply, as I said, one size fit for all. No, each teacher has a special, peculiar methodology maybe to teach their students in a better way, and we in our schools allow them to do that at special giftedness. Efforts are made to achieve a true union of minds and hearts to work together as a single apostolic body in the formation of the students. That means our teachers must be harmoniously coexisting, helping our students to grow harmoniously. And when we talk about our students, Jesuit education includes formation in values and attitudes. Jesuit education takes place in a moral context where knowledge is joined to virtue. It tries to develop in students an ability to know reality and evaluate it critically. Students simply sitting in the class and gulping whatever the teachers say. No, they have to reflect, they have to identify critically, analyze things, and make their own choices. The decisive action called for today is faith that does justice. The Jesuit school provides students with opportunities for contact with the world of injustice, with the poor, and for service to them, both in the school and outside service projects. To be educational in this contact is joined to reflection and analysis of the cause of the poverty and injustice, etc. I used to take my students to rural areas or orphanage centers or leprosy clinics, etc., so that the students will come to know more about the realities of life. And then when they come back, we used to reflect with them, discern together, and see what effectively touched them. And I see such experiences only can transform students to be better human beings. Today, our prime educational objective must be to form men and women for others. As I said, today, this year is the 50th anniversary of Arupe's famous dictum, men and women for others. Those who graduate from our schools should have acquired in ways proportional to their age and maturity a way of life that as a proclamation of the charity of Christ, of the faith that comes from Him and leads back to Him, and of the justice which He announced. I think uh, Jesuit education, when we look at the students who have passed out from our schools and working as an alumni, etc., I see this as a great virtue. They have imbibed the spirit of Christ of service, whichever religion they belong to. Now, a word about the parents also, because we believe Jesuit education cannot be complete without the parents' support and their involvement. Teachers in a Jesuit school cooperate closely with the parents, who are also members of the educational community. There is frequent communication. Parents are offered support and opportunities for growing in exercising their role as parents, and as they are also offered opportunities to participate in advisory councils in our schools. I still believe that a school cannot be complete without having proper programs for the parents in our schools. Parents are helped to fulfill their right and responsibility as educators in home and family, and they in turn contribute to the work of education going on in the school. There is a mutual support and cooperation between school and the parents. As far as possible, parents understand, value, and accept the Ignatian worldview that characterizes the Jesuit school. And Jesuit school leadership, the principals, the headmasters, the vice principal, the management, etc., they also have a role. They are, as Jesuit school chooses as qualified leaders of the educational community, those who can teach and give witness to the teachings of Christ presented to them. The role of the director or headmaster or head of the school or principal is that he is an apostolic leader. The role is vital in providing inspiration, in the development of the common vision, and in preserving unity within the educational community. In addition to this role of inspiration, the director remains ultimately responsible for the distinctively Jesuit nature of this education. Governing boards are aware of and open to the Ignatian vision as this is applied to education. In short, my dear friends, the whole life of the school is adapted to fit the specific needs of the place where the school is located and the people it serves. Ultimately, Jesuit education is aiming at uh, human excellence. And our students, our staff, our parents, our administrators, all are working as a well knit machine together for the excellence of our students and also fulfilling the greater needs of this world. Let's have, in this 50th year of Arupe's famous dictum, making men and women for others as the sole aim of Jesuit education, let's all promise that together, as teachers, as leaders of the schools, as parents, as students, we will fulfill these greater objectives and make our schools relevant and meaningful in the coming days. Thank you very much, and God bless all of us.